Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Stuart, and welcome to RecipeKick. We are so excited to have you here with us today. I'm coming to you not live from my little kitchen in Paris or from a chateau kitchen, but I am exactly where I was last week and accidentally, I think, in the same shirt. Don't worry, I've washed it. I've changed outfits. It just happens to be my Wednesday thing. I am back in the kitchen at our wonderful home of La Peach. Now, La Peach is the former home of Julia and Paul Child, where our headquarters are based, where we're in this wonderful, glorious kitchen, and it's so exciting. This kitchen was buzzing with cooking school students about 45 minutes ago, and everyone has left, so I've done like a quick reset to get ready, so forgive me. I still kind of feel like I'm talking to 10 different people right now, but now I have you wonderful folks. So it is 4 p.m. right now in France. I think that means it's 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. on the Eastern Seaboard, and maybe 6 a.m. if any of y'all are on the West Coast timing, or if you're coming in, tuning in from anywhere in the world, or if you are joining us later. Hi, we're so excited to have you. I would also like to introduce my wonderful producer, Alex. Many of you may know him. He is also an American expat here in France. There are just so many of us now. We're all doing the thing. Come join us. But today, I will go ahead and get into the recipe because we've got a lot to talk about. One of my absolute favorites and most misunderstood dishes in the world, French onion soup. We are so excited to be making this today. And by we, I mean the royal we. I don't know why I did that. Sometimes I say we. I just always thought that I should be the queen. But anyway, I'll have to take that up with Charles when I'm in London at the end of this weekend. So French onion soup is a very misunderstood, and I say that because so many times people just think that it's rather bland. If you've ever been lucky enough to go to Paris, where I'm based, Paris, you can find this in any bistro, in any restaurants, and I'm gonna be honest with you, sometimes it's not that good. The onions are watery and they completely lack flavor and depth and dynamic nature, dynamism. What's that word I'm looking for? I'm trying to learn too many languages right now, and now my native tongue is just, but you know what I mean. It's a very dynamic soup, and the history of French onion soup goes back really, really far. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to start getting these caramelized, which will take a bit, but welcome to the magic of TV. We're able to do a lot of different things, so don't worry, we will be staying on track. So I've got a yellow onion. I bought this at the little market in Cannes on the French Riviera yesterday. If any of y'all are fans of Alfred Hitchcock, you may know the film I'm about to say, but To Catch a Thief, one of my absolute favorites. And that market in Cannes where we were, this actually is not a very sharp knife. I'm going to grab a different one. But the market where we were in Cannes is where one of the scenes in To Catch a Thief is based. So I always love telling that to our students who come here for the cooking school season about that. So that's where these onions come from. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice them. I'm going to peel them first. This is a very happy peel. When you're peeling onions, don't be a hero. You don't need this leathery bit. Just let it go. Just let it go. I prefer yellow onions when I'm cooking. Sharp Alex, producer, sharpen those knives. I know. I'm getting there. It'll be later. I'm also going to put my onion skins in a little paper bag to then put in the freezer when I'm done to help make fortified water for the week. Fortified water is like a lesser stock. It's incredible. But as I was saying, I love using yellow onion. It's great for certain things, for certain salsas, but if I'm going to cook with an onion, I want a yellow, or my absolute favorite, a purple onion or a red onion, depending on what you call them. Red onions can be sweet, but they also offer a lot of a peppery bite. It's just adding more depth. This is a really, really simple soup to make. Simplistic ingredients. So you want to be able to, hawk up as much as you can. See how much sharper that knife is? It's just amazing. I always keep the root on as I'm chopping because it gives me something better to hold on to. So the history. All right, sorry, we had messages, but the history of French onion soup. Does anyone know, or do we have anyone live? You know how much I thrive on comments. I'm such a little extrovert, a little excited squirrel, as McKenna calls me. But French onion soup actually goes back to the medieval times. Now, Simone Beck, Lisette, and Julia Child, coming from this exact neighborhood. In fact, I can see Simone Beck's house from where I am. I can see Alaska from my house. I can see Simone Beck's from my house. But they said in their book, the Mastering the Art of French Cooking, that it is hard to imagine a civilization without onions. And I couldn't agree more. They're cheap. They're really relatively easy to grow. They grow in the ground. They can take a multitude of climates. You've got different onions from all over the world. If we have anyone tuning in from Georgia or anyone in the deep south, we know how much you love your Vidalia onions. Vidalia onions are amazing. They are so sweet. They're almost like candy. They're fantastic. But what I'm saying for all this is that onions used to be considered a peasant food. So what is French onion soup? We're talking, it's just a soup of onions that have been gently fried and then cooked in water originally and served with croutons and cheese. That's it. That's all that it takes. So let's kind of turn it up on its head a little bit. It does have a great history, though, when you look back into the annals of France. Once this starts appearing in literature and cookbooks, was around the age of Louis XV. That was the grandfather, not the father of Louis XVI, the one who, you know, that one. So I'm just going to slice these as I'm telling the story. Pretty thin, but not too thin. You want there to be enough integrity there, but you can kind of play around. If you go too thin when you're caramelizing onions, those onions are going to burn. We're going to do a very quick caramelization that should take about 20 minutes. Also, don't be a hero as you're getting to the end of them. Do whatever you need. These are going to go into a beautiful soup that you won't even notice how the cuts are. But we do want to make sure that they soak up all those flavors. Okay, but back to it. So legend has it that Louis XV was gallivanting on his horse out on some hunting trip, probably near Versailles, and then went down to the kitchen of the little hunting lodge where he was and found only champagne, butter, and onions in the pantry, the larder, the refrigerator, whatever they were working with in that early 1700s. And with that, he invented the first French onion soup. Now, I'm not an off with their head type of revolutionary, but I am willing to call bullcorn on that. I don't think it's true. A much more probably relevant one was his father-in-law, Stanislas Licious. If we have any people who are from Poland or who speak Polish, I apologize. Polish is not my go-to language. Real quick, I'm moving over here to the stove on camera B. Hello, everyone. I have a pretty sturdy little pot. I'm only caramelizing 2 onions right now, so I don't need to go too crazy. But just remember, when you're caramelizing onions or cooking anything down, you want to have enough surface level to get everything. This is just perfect for those 2 little amounts of onions that I have. I'm going to let this get pretty hot, not searing, but pretty warm. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of a neutral oil, a sunflower oil. Yes, you could use butter. Yes, you could use olive oil, but that's going to get a little bit kind of musty. What we're going to be looking for, see, that's as much as I used. I mean, that is a teaspoon probably. Going to let that heat up, and then it'll kind of dismantle itself onto the bottom pot. All right, coming back over here to camera A, getting all of my onions in order so they're ready to go. But his father-in-law apparently was eating at an inn in Champagne and had the soup and said, what an amazing soup this is. It's revolutionary. I'm going to take this to my new son-in-law, Louis XV, and my daughter, who are making Versailles into what it is today. And we're going to have the soup, and boom, there you go. Now, is it true? Don't know. I cut that one a little bit big. I got too excited telling a history lesson. Nerd alert. We don't know, but what we do know is that the soup ended up becoming what it is today from a little area in Paris known as Léal. Also, if you have any of these green bits on the onion as you're wanting to caramelize, you're going to want to take these off. These are really, really leathery, and I don't like them. They're just not great. So I'm going to remove these because that's just going to make for a not delicious part of the caramelization process. Get rid of it. Be gone. Hold on. I'm going to concentrate as I'm doing this. And these are pretty powerful. I'm also going to try not to cry. A lot going on here at La Peach. Okay. But as I was saying, so Léal, are any of you familiar with Léal? If you say the restaurant where Anthony Bourdain worked in New York, that is correct. Not going to judge you. I'm going to walk these onions over to my stock pot. Let's see. Yep. Getting hot enough. I'm hearing a little bit of a sizzle. I don't know if you're picking it up on the gimbal because I'm wearing my headphones. But you're going to want to heat or get those onions on as it sizzles. Just like Paris when it sizzles. Another fantastic old film with, who's in that one? Not Katharine Hepburn, Audrey Hepburn. Whoa. All right. But as I was saying, so Léal, that is the old market of Paris. Now, when I say market, I don't mean where we go to the market anymore and go do our wonderful little shops, going to pick up your produce for the week. I mean like where the restaurants were going at this time. So Layal began, I think, in like the 14th century a little bit. So Layal is in the center of Paris in the second district, so the second arrondissement. And it used to be completely surrounded by cemeteries. That sounds like a wonderful oh, hold on. We've got some lighting issues. Alex, hope that's better. All right, there we go. But so the soup became at Layal, and we'll go into a little bit more in the history of Layal, but what people were eating. So you had the butchers walking around in their bloodied aprons, sawing off beef bones, having leftover beef stock. You also then had the cheesemongers, you had the bread guys, you had everybody down there, and they needed something to eat. You also had the wonderful people who were working at cabarets. Say you're up at the Moulin Rouge, up in the 18th, which is up on the hill towards Montmartre. You're coming down, you have been canning all night. What do you want for your, pre-hangover something? You want a bowl of a heavily fortified onion soup. That's where this became legend. And I know I'm talking a lot with these. What we're going to do right now is we're going to cut up this bread and we're going to make some croutons really, really quickly. So I'm going to grab a bread knife while I continue going. But so Layal, as I said, used to be next to all the cemeteries. If you've been to Paris before, and that is my home now, you will notice that Paris itself is really small. It's not big. And everybody continues, and always has lived directly on top of each other. And with that, I include, shall I say it on here? This is a cooking show, but whatever. That includes the dead bodies. Real quick, you notice that I'm not touching my onions. This is key here. So many times when we caramelize onions, the first thing that we want to do is stir, stir, stir. I don't want that. I want these onions to have their own texture, their own flavor, to really bring out that wonderful onion bit. I don't want mushy caramelized onions because gross. If you're going to caramelize an onion, do it well, do it right. So what I'm looking for here is something. Can anybody tell me what it is? It is a reaction. It starts with an M. It sounds like a certain type of duck. It's called the Maillard reaction. What I'm looking for is to get those lovely brown bits, get those caramelizations on the way to carcinogens, which are delicious in small quantities, but on the way to that. So I'm not touching it. I'm not going to salt it. I'm not going to stir it. I'm not going to deglaze it. The sense will tell me when it's time for me to begin stirring. If you absolutely cannot handle it, and this is something that I've learned from Kendall, if you cannot handle it and your instincts are screaming, stir, stir, you can shake it. So it's already really hot, if you can still see this. So I'll give it a little bloop, a little shake, and look at this. You can already see, I'm going to try to move the gimbal closer. Bear with me, y'all. Oh, it's as low as it goes. I'm going to move it up to you. You can already see that some of those that I've lifted off have some brown specks forming. That's what we want. That's that Maillard reaction. Now, this is a very, very powerful range stove. As you can see, it's gas. This one's name is actually called Sunflower, which I find quite adorable. It's bright yellow. If you can see it here to my right, or probably to your left on camera A, but it's really, really powerful. So if your stove takes a little bit more time, that's completely fine. We judge nothing here. But back to the bread and back to Layal. So as I said, it was a market. So this is where people are going. The maids of, very, very wealthy households are going to pick up the food for the week, where the restaurateurs were going. You've got the blood and guts from the butchers. You've got that next to fresh produce. You've got that next to dead bodies. After a while, Parisians started going, this is probably not that healthy. We are one of the glitziest cities in the world, and cholera is running rampant. So what did they do? Does anybody have any guesses? Anyone? Alex, I know you love history too. See, y'all joined for French onion soup, and here I am talking about Halloween things. Spooky stuff. I love it. So what they decided to do was remove all of those cemeteries from where they're from. What do you do? Yeah, Alex, plague. That was definitely happening. So what did they do? This was in the early 19th century. They dug up all of the bodies in Paris from almost every single cemetery. Most of them were rive droite, which is right bank. Then you have left bank, where I live and where I live. But they moved everybody, plopped them up, and then transferred them, and then put them back underground. Do you know where they went back underground? It's perfect for Halloween. The catacombs. Yes, absolutely. That's why we have the catacombs. The bodies that were in the catacombs were not put there originally. They've been dead for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And I'm not going to get too into it unless we really want to, because this is cooking school, but could also be, fun ghost stories. But anyway, so they move that. The catacombs happen. Layal opens up. It begins to be a little bit cleaner. And French onion soup was born out of that necessity, out of those hangover remedies for all the girls walking home from the cabaret, for all of the butchers that had all of the excess meat. They had the beef bones, the beef stock. What to do? I'm going to move over and check on my onions because I can begin to smell them. Oh, this is stunning. I'm going to grab my handy dandy spatula. All right, I'm going to go ahead and give this a stir. Let's just see how they're doing. Oh my goodness. Y'all see that browning bit hanging out at the bottom? I'm just going to give it a quick one. And what is it? The saying, love it, leave it alone. I also, just so you're aware, have some glorious stock right here. This is a heavily fortified chicken stock that we have already made. Kendall's been working on it all week. This has chicken. This has every single vegetable scrap that we're using. Those onion skins that I just pulled to set and reserve aside, that goes into here. This is basically your compost pile for anything that can be like used, not necessarily dirty. So that's what I mean by compost. If you've got muddy things, don't throw them in your stock pot. If you've got clean things, throw them in. Absolutely delicious. So it has been, we finished it today, and I'm going to leave that over here and then start heating it up right before we go on. But for crouton sizes, I like to be quite willy-nilly because I like to think of back when things originally were that, and I'm quite a little bit scarred from Le Cordon Bleu. That's the culinary school where I went to, Kendall went to, McKenna, Mariano. I think we have some other courageous cooks that went there as well here on RecipeKick. You can also be lazy and you can tear them. I like textured croutons. I think they're more fun. So what I was trying to say to that is that Le Cordon Bleu, we would have competitions and we would get graded on how perfect our croutons were cut. They had to be exactly in the centimeter to the millimeter on each side. It was just a lot. It's fun. It's a fun way to challenge yourselves, but you know what? I'm over it. Maybe we can do that one day. Question listed above. Alex, how do you fortify stock? That is a wonderful question. So when it comes to stocks, stocks are the beating heart and soul of any recipe that you use. Now, can you use the box ones? Absolutely, in a pinch, but you really shouldn't be needing to do that if you're able to get yourself on a wonderful schedule. So what we do here at Le Peach, we have 2 stock bases. Actually, I'm going to turn you real quick and see if you can see that. Oh, you can only see my vinegars here. We'll go over to the stove. So you'll see right here that we've got this wonderful pot of stock. I'm going to open it. I'm also holding a breadcrumb. Look at that. That is filled with a lamb bone that we used earlier this week. That's a lamb shoulder and filled with bone marrow bones. If any of y'all have had the chance to see Kendall's bone marrow lesson or have not had the chance to see, go look. It's fantastic. That is our collagen stock coming from the beef bones. That sits here and is reheated every single day and refortified. It's diluted and then fortified again with water. Diluted, fortified again. That's for the beef one. For this chicken one, as I was saying, we started off with all of the vegetables that we had, the leftovers, the onion skins, the heads of garlic. And with garlic, when you're making a stock, you don't have to peel it. You can take a piece of garlic, which we seem to be out of. No, we're not. You can take a piece of garlic. Just got this wonderful head here. Cut it in half. Throw this in a pot. It's that easy. Oh, that smells fantastic. But you can throw in your carrots, your celery, your fennel. You start off, I guess I should go with this. You start off by making your mirepoix. What is a mirepoix? A mirepoix can be a lot of things. 1, it is a town in France, a cute little village. 2, it's also the size of a cut that you learn here. But most notably, it's known for being the base of any dish really here in France, in Italy, in Cajun cooking. In Cajun cooking, you're using green peppers, you're using onions. In France, you're using celery, onion, carrot. It's also called sofrito in Spain and in Italy. So what you do is you start off by making a Maillard reaction, the same thing that we are doing with these onions right here. And you know what? I can already smell that Maillard reaction happening. I can smell it's not quite burning, but it's getting there. Oh, see that? You see that wonderful caramelization already happening on the onion? It makes me so excited. So I'm just giving it a quick stir, not too much. See how quickly these are already going? And these aren't your soft and nasty caramelized onions. These are going to have texture. These are going to have flavor. And we're going to do more to make even more flavor in a minute. But back to this. So you make your mirepoix for your stock. Then once that's done, you're going to start adding in your vegetables. You're going to add in your cold water. You're going to then let that bubble all day as you keep cooking. Say, okay, let's talk about Thanksgiving. Let's put this in Thanksgiving because we've got what? Another month until that happens. You start off in the morning. You're getting ready to do your whole spread. You make your mirepoix. Your onions 3 weeks. Thank you, Alex. I really need to know that because I'm doing a bunch of catering events in Paris for that. Oh, that's for me to worry about tomorrow. I just beat Scarlet hair. I'll think about that tomorrow. But you make your mirepoix and then you put it in the pot along with a little bit of oil that same way that we did the onions. And you're going to let that Maillard reaction start. That's going to add depth. That's going to add umami. It's going to add all your flavor. Then you start adding any of your other onion, celery, carrot, discards that you've been working with. Okay, here are our breadcrumbs. I'm going to give them a good drizzle of olive oil. And I'm going to do this over here. I learned how to cook and really fell in love with cooking in Italy. And I know I'm in France, but I'm an olive oil girl when it comes to breadcrumbs. Anyone else? Anyone? No? Is there anyone alive out there? All right, I'm also going to take some of our wonderful salts. So we have this wonderful container. I highly recommend if you love cooking and love flavoring and love seasoning things, which of course you do, that's why you're here at RecipeKick, to get a salt container. We have here a wonderful flaky Maldon sea salt. We have here our Camargue. I never can pronounce it. Alex, you always make fun of me. Camargue sea salt. This is just the typical, almost I would say table salt of France. And then we have a smoked sea salt. I want to go smoked sea salt. Let's give a little bit on those croutons. Give it a mix. I'm a big believer in mixing and seasoning as you go. If you don't season your breadcrumbs, and they're just going to taste like bread, and then you're going to have to do so much. And then when you serve people that French onion soup, they're going to then have to add more salt. So salt as you go. As I'm looking at it, I also want some thyme on my breadcrumbs. So I've got here Taurus Wild Mountain Thyme or Taurus Mountain Thyme. I'm not a Taurus, I'm a Gemini, but they're right by me, so I figured I'd grab it. I'm going to do just a little bit to get those happy. Mix with your hands. They are the best tool you have. All right, I'm going to pop them in the oven. I've got this on, let's see, what are you on? About 150. I'm going to pump that up to about 200. What is that, Alex? About 400 degrees? I think that's about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, next option, we're going to take a deep breath and we're moving. Is there any other way with croutons? Always use EVOO. You know what? I have to agree. I know people who do butter with breadcrumbs, and I think that's great, and it certainly can be delicious, but I just think if you've got a really good olive oil that you know you love and super believe in, use that. What did I do with my scraper? Here you go. All right, I'm going to clean. Up next, we are going to shave down some Gruyere cheese. So back to the history of French onion soup. So we're back. We're at Les Halles. We've got Satine and Chocolat coming down from the Moulin Rouge. We've got everybody coming in from Folies Bergère. They've left their feathers at home. They want a heavy, fortified, yummy, yummy soup. Now, originally, the soup was only done with onions and maybe a toasted baguette that had fallen off the back of the bread truck, or maybe the boulangerie next door felt a little bit nice that we could add that in. Hold on, we've got a class. Susie Baker, I'm watching from Virginia. Such a fun class thus far. Thank you so much. Yeah, I always think welcome to the Thunderdome. It's so much fun here, so I really appreciate having you. And I actually see we've got 2 dogs running around outside and a cat chasing them, so I'm going to try to zero back in. So much happens down here at La Peach. But as I was saying, so you have the soup originally that way. And then when you're at a huge market like that, you've got other types of stalls. You've got fromage, your cheese guys. What do I always say? Your fromage, your cheesemongers are always the nicest, in my opinion, out of the bunch, or at least the flirtiest. They love letting you sample cheese because they know after one bite, they're going to lure you in. So that's how I imagine this happening. Someone's making some French onion soup, or just onion soup at that time, because they were all in France. What else would they call it? And the cheese guy goes, if I give a little sliver of this Gruyere cheese, maybe, just maybe, I can get them to buy a block. That's how I imagine it happening. That's exactly how it was, because it's in my mind. So here we have a wonderful Gruyere cheese. This is hard enough that it's going to melt perfectly, but soft enough that it's still pretty pliable. And it's delicious. If you don't have Gruyere cheese on hand, that's completely okay. You can do this with cheddar. I've done this with mozzarella, not wet mozzarella, but dried. It was in a pinch. It was in college. You do what you can. But honestly, get fun. If you even have a blue cheese around, I've done that before. I have not then flambéed it, but I've served it just on top. There are no rules when it comes to this kind of cooking. Just have fun. Speaking of, I'm going to stir the onions. Ooh, you see how wonderful and brown things are getting. That bottom of the pot is really beginning to get super dark. Don't worry, we will bring that back to wonderful light. And they're just going. Now this can take anywhere from 20 minutes. Some people say it can take up to 2 hours. Again, it depends on the power of your stove. I'm actually going to turn mine up just a little bit, but you notice I have not salted these yet. I haven't done a thing. Where this becomes untraditional, which is the title of this, is how we're treating the onions and the flavors that we are showcasing throughout that. I'm not adding salt, but I am kind of ready to add something else. Before we get back to the peas, I went out earlier and I picked some herbs in the garden. We have so many, herbs or herbs if we have any Brits watching. I used to live in England for a very, very long time. And the biggest complaint my British friends have with me is that I don't pronounce the H in herbs. There's an H there, but you know what? I'm an American. I'm just going to keep it herbs. So we've got some beautiful rosemary. I don't know if I want to use the rosemary necessarily in this. This has a very, very particular scent, but I do want to use the rosemary flowers. If any of y'all are familiar with a rosemary flower, if you can see it, herb, Alex, herb is a person. Herbs are what you grow. Herbs are what you grow. There you go. I like that. I'm going to say that when I arrive in London on Friday. So rosemary flowers are, I'm actually going to take over the camera. I want to make sure that you can see this because I'm Texan and I did not grow up with flowers on my rosemary. That does not happen that far close to the desert. So you see these beautiful purple flowers and they have so much flavor packed in. One flower has the taste of rose, like it's just rosemary. It's just rosemary. Do you like that? I'm so loquacious today, just getting all my points across. It's a wonderful way to use rosemary flavor without having to get into the woodiness, kind of chewiness of the rosemary themselves. I personally love that about that. A good garnish on a plate. Exactly, Alex, that is just where we're going. I personally love the flavor and the mouth texture of rosemary. I quite like being able to chew on a herb, but not everybody does. So I'm going to take some lessons in from other people, but I also have some wonderful fresh thyme. So I'm going to take this, bring it over to my pot. You can use dried herbs here, but I really love using fresh when you can. So with an herb, an easy way to do it is you just hold down one end and then very carefully strip the leaves off of another. Don't pull so hard that you're going to break it because then you're going to get really frustrated with yourself if you break this little tip. So see how much I pulled from that? I'm not even going to cut it. I'm just going to go through and throw it in. This is a rustic soup. This is not meant to be, freaked out over. This is what people were serving. We're serving cabaret, lovely people, which we all would have absolutely loved to be. This was a hangover dish. This was for people who'd been working at the hall since 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, Layal now, if you're thinking, we're going back to the history part of it. If you're looking at Layal, if you've been to Paris, you're like, Layal's not a food market. Layal's a shopping mall. You were correct. In the 1970s, Paris has had a lot of issues throughout its history with cemeteries in places they shouldn't be, with some interesting views on HACCP rules and regulations when it comes to cleanliness, especially regarding the food industry. So during about the 1970s, Paris was getting more and more populated, more people were coming in, it's hitting the millions mark, and Paris, unlike London, unlike everywhere in the US, unlike Dubai, there's nowhere for Paris to grow to. Paris itself used to be a walled city, and you can't go and then build on top of anything. All of the buildings have to remain old. So what happens? People just keep piling up and in and getting really crowded into things. So the government officials looked around in the early 70s and were like, we've got to get this market out of here. It is in the middle of the city. We're trying to build new metro lines. More people are coming in. They already started building La Défense, which is on the west side of Paris. That is the downtown of Paris. It looks just like Dallas or Los Angeles if you look and see. Any Emily in Paris, France, that's where Lucien worked, was over in La Défense. That's also where you can find air conditioning over the summer. Becomes really, really popular in about August for all of the business people who've come in and say, we must have air conditioning. Anyway, so what happened? They picked up Layal. They moved all of the marketers onto the southeast side of Paris next to the Orly airport. That's Orly, I believe. And that is now one of the largest markets in the entire world called Rungis, but you have to pronounce it French, Rungis. Rungis, I have been lucky enough to go there a couple of times. Next to, I think it's the second or third largest market in the entire world behind the one outside of Tokyo. And there's another one I'm completely forgetting and I can't remember what it's called. It's going to annoy me. I'm checking on our breadcrumbs real quick. Should have checked on them a little bit earlier, but that's okay. We're not using, oh wait, no, never mind. They're perfect. I'm perfect. What am I talking about? See, this self-doubt. You've got to try really hard and believe in yourself, and all things will work out. Look at those. That took 7 minutes. This is a really powerful onion. A few of these are a bit browner than I would have liked, but just a couple of them. So you know what? We won't use them. This is also why, just a PSA, even though we're only making French onion soup for one, you always use more than you need when you're cooking if you have that capability. If you burn some, it's no skin off my back, it's all there. Okay, our onions are getting beautifully charred. It's time to deglaze. Now, when it comes to deglazing, so I'm going back over here. If I can find, aha. Also, everything in this kitchen is much taller than I am, so I spend a lot of my time on my tippy toes. It was actually on them over there. I've got a wonderful rosé. You could use any wine that you want. I personally love rosé because it's Provence. It's summer. I'm going to do just a little bit to start breaking up. Ooh, hear that noise? Breaking up the brown bits on the bottom. Ooh, it's hot. Hot, hot, hot. On the bottom of that pan. Unlike Kendall, I do not have asbestos pans. I've got them a little bit, but not as much as I like. So what I'm doing here is I'm scraping up all of the brown bits. All right, cool down a little bit. I'm gonna turn my heat down just a skosh. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more. Wine also implies flavoring. It's so good. Now, a lot of people, when they're caramelizing onions or deglazing in general, deglaze way too soon. If you have none of those brown bits, none of that Maillard reaction already happening on the bottom of the pan, there's nothing to deglaze. Why would you pour wine in something or any kind of liquid when you have nothing to scrape up? See, I'm working hard. I'm getting there. But now I'm going to leave it alone because that's what I've been preaching. Love her. Leave her alone. We're going to go back to this cheese really quickly. But that's where we are with Rangis, with Leal. Do we have any questions? World's largest market, WEU market, China. Thank you. China, Japan, Rangis. If you've ever eaten in Europe, there is like a 97% chance that the food you're eating has actually come through Rangis, not just France, but it all goes through there and back out again. Some of you may remember this. If you're new here, maybe you don't. Before I became a chef and joined this wonderful team, I actually used to work in global grocery sourcing, so buying and in food procurement. I traveled all over the world. I learned all about the logistics of things, how things actually get to your plate. And it's fascinating. It's so much more in-depth than what you read on the back of the label. Alex is on this today. Hold on. 5.5 million square meters of space, which spans 7 kilometers. That's the one in China? Wow. See, welcome to RecipeKick. We don't just learn how to cook, we learn all of these fun facts. You're going to be able to crush it at Jeopardy with your family later this week. If any of y'all are huge Jeopardy players, my family is, and I am really good at fun facts. It's like one of my things. That may be a Gemini thing. But yeah, I'm going to take this in. So what I'm going to do to this Gruyere, I'm just going to start kind of I can't even talk anymore. I'm going to start slicing it down into pretty thin little slices because I want these to be able to uphold when it comes to the point that I flambe it. We haven't talked about it. That is one of the best parts and everyone's favorite bit of French onion soup is that wonderful cheese pull. So when it comes to French onion soup, you've got the base, you've got the fortified onions in there with whatever stock you have, whether it's a fortified chicken stock, a vegetable stock, a beef bone stock, whatever you've got. If you don't have time to make your own stocks, that's okay. We still love you. If you're buying that out of whatever it is, Kettle and Fire, out of your local private label one, that's fine too. But you've got that. You've got the onions in the base there, which speaking of, I'm going to go stir them, make sure they're happy. Oh, they're so happy. Oh, y'all, I mean, look at that. This is glorious. This, and it smells absolutely divine. I'm going to give it about a minute, and I'm going to add some more things just to keep it fun. So you're going to go back over here. But so you've got the onion base. Now, what's up next? You've got the crunch of the croutons. When we think about the pyramid, which I'm going to grab one right here. All right, your foundation with French onion soup. Depends on how heavy you go, but I'm going to say for mine, my foundation is that caramelized onions. I don't know if y'all can see this. I know y'all work with it as well. Then you've got your complements and contrast. What's a complement to that caramelized onion? Well, it depends also on how you're flavoring things. Oh, thank you, Alex. You are on it. So that's a different one than this one. Okay, I'm going to read off mine. Y'all read off that one. But with your complements, you have textures, taste, flavors, temperatures, color. Now, this is a soup, and we like to serve it warm. So we're going to go ahead and say that temperature, everything's going to be a complement. That it's going to be served hot. You've got your taste, your caramelized onions that have been sitting there caramelizing in wine and in other fun things. That's where I start getting a little freaky. I'm going to add some delicious sherry vinegar and some apple cider vinegar. Why? Because I feel like it. You can grab any vinegar that you want. I do tell people to shy away from balsamic vinegar when cooking. We're just doing a little bit. That's that sherry vinegar, vinegar de Xerxes en français, but I say Xerxes because I'm a history nerd. That's like the old emperor of Persia. I just think that's fun because history is cool and it's what makes us really good at Jeopardy. So I'm gonna let that cook for just a second, and then I'm gonna add this apple cider vinegar. We have about 20 different kinds of vinegar here at La Peach, so there's always something to grab. But adding the vinegar here, be careful when you do it. Don't put your nose directly in it or that will happen. Adding the vinegar adds another layer of depth that I think if you do just wine, it begins to get a little lost. Now you may be going, why haven't you salted yet? I'm doing it now. Gonna salt those babies just a bit. I'm gonna let those cook on low for just a minute. And y'all, we're almost done. We're almost ready. That's how quick this is when you already have those stocks, those broths prepared. Alex, this is Sparta. Yeah, it was. That was an incredible movie. Do you remember when it came out? 300? Anyone know what we're talking about? But back to it. So with the French onion soup itself, you have the complements of those flavors all really working in towards each other. 2006, man. Getting old. Your temperature, your colors are a complement here. You're going to have the browns from the caramelized onions, but we added in a purple onion. It's going to be a little bit different, but all of that's going on the base layer, a literal foundation with items on top. So you're not really going to be able to see it unless you are sitting in a well-lit studio kitchen, such as this one. Usually when you're eating French onion soup, you're sitting at a brasserie or maybe on the sofa watching movies. Maybe you're watching scary Halloween movies. If you are, call me because I love that. Let's be friends. You know, you're really not able to see that. So then up on the next block, you've got, well, let's go, your fats and your acids. Your acids here, what did we just play with? We just threw in wine. We just threw in 2 types of vinegar because why not? If I had a lemon lying around, but I don't because I just used it right before y'all got here, I would throw a lemon in there as well, trying to build that in. Now, also, I am a very heavily acidic cook, as is McKenna. We both love high acids and everything. It just brings me alive. So I'm going to add more of that in. Now, maybe you're more of a, I don't really feel like that. I feel like I want to throw a fat in there. That's absolutely fine. You could, if you did so want to, add in some butter. All right, those are done. I'm going to turn that off for right now. Let those give a little bit of a rest, and I'm going to reheat my chicken stock. Maybe, there we go. Just a little bit with a little bit of luck. Yeah, again, you've got to be really careful here because these onions go super fast. So your fats, you have your butter, you have those oils that we used, you have the olive oil that we used on the croutons. Absolutely just delicious little bits. Your salts, we just did that. Your aromatics, that's going to be our garnishes that we're going to put on in just a minute. Also for fats, I almost just left out everyone's favorite part, the cheese pull. I'd never heard of the term cheese pull until like the TikTok started doing it and talking about it. And I just think it's great because it's honestly exactly what it is. When cheese melts perfectly on that French onion soup and you take a bite and you have to do the dragon breath, the ha 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 ha, because the cheese is just stringing, and then you get a bite of crunchy crouton or a slice of toasted baguette, whatever you do, it just marries and makes the most savory, comforting, delicious. Oh, sometimes that happens with cheese. I should pay attention. One second. I'm trying to get it thin, but not too thin. But also I quite like adding in different sizes and textures, which this goes back to the texture conversation. Some of the onions we did thinly, so they're going to have a crunch and more of a bite. Some of them are a lot thicker. They're still going to have a lot of flavor of the onions itself. There's so much space to play. Also, start playing around and seeing what fits you. Like, how do you like not only to cook, but how do you like to eat? What amuses your bouche? If you're unfamiliar with that term, amuse-bouche is a starter, a 1 to 2 bite starter that we do here in France. You may call it an hors d'oeuvre. You may call it like a small pastry appetizer, but that's an amuse-bouche, and it basically means amusing your mouth. And I just find that absolutely adorable. So I've got my cheese. I don't want to do too much because I've got dinner in about an hour. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm going to eat this entire thing when we head off. All right, hold on. Alex, our producer, cheese stretch competition, the inaugural Lagule. We'll pass that later. AOP Festival in France includes a competition to see how stretchy dairies can make their cheese. Sounds like we should be solving other world problems, but this is cool. In this video from Jean Montan, they show off their cheese making skills with a goulie or gooey allure de la braque that reaches to truly impressive height with the help of a scissor lift. That seems unnecessarily, you know what? Actually, it doesn't. That seems amazing. That makes me love the world that we live in. You know what? It's like that old Jerry Seinfeld joke, like what scientist is working on seedless watermelon? Don't we have things that we need to be doing? The video has it going beyond 3 meters. Alex, can you tell us what that is in feet for our people who do not work in meters? Sometimes me, sometimes my brain, I've been living in Europe on and off for over 10 years. Sometimes my brain can quickly compute meters, centimeters, kilometers, and then other times I look at people and I'm like, ugh. I don't know. That's about 10 feet, 12 feet. That's a 12-foot cheese pull. That's just aggressive. That's actually really cool. We'll post that when we do this later today. Okay, so now it's time to get everything in order. Like I said, y'all, this goes so fast. Isn't it incredible? So I've got my leftover cheese. I'm going to get this out of the way. I have the cheese that we are going to be using when we layer it on, and it just went everywhere. I have some old bread. I have that wonderful rosemary that I want to use some of those flowers in just a little bit. I also pulled some oregano, but as we were chatting, I was like, I don't want to do oregano. That just doesn't seem to have a home here. We have one more sprig of delightful fresh thyme. This will also go in as garnish. I have one cilantro leaf that made it over here, and I have these beautiful fresh chives from the garden. I'm also going to use these. But right now, I'm going to move all of that off, clear off my board. This is a cutting board of Oklahoma. I don't know why it's here. None of us, I don't think, are from Oklahoma. Maybe we had a guest from there. I love Oklahoma. My great-grandmother's from there. But there we go. It's a nice, like, size board. The Texas cutting boards are odd. If we have any Texans, hey, y'all. All right, up next. So I've got my stock reheating right here. I'm going to go ahead and give y'all a taste. Well, not give y'all a taste. I'm going to taste it, and I'm going to show you. All right, so here we go. Do you see how wonderfully dark and deep this is? If you're big into clear broths, that is fine. I personally I call these dirty stocks. Fortified stock, dirty stock. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so good. I can taste fennel. I taste onions. I taste celery. I taste quite a bit of carrot. There's something, I can't place what that vegetable, I place something else, but I don't know what that is. That's what we're talking about when we say use these fortified stocks. Get creative with your broths. There are so many different ways than other just taking a stock cube and throwing it in there. Now, at the end of the day, if all you have is a stock cube, that's also fine. Again, we're not judging anyone here, but you're here to be courageous. You're here to learn. Let's do it. Okay. I'm going to show you because those onions needed a little bit more time. They were on for about 30 minutes. They probably could have gone for 35. So I went ahead and by the magic of TV, the magic of RecipeKick, I caramelized these onions earlier today. Now I want you to see, check out that color. Can you see it? I hope that's okay for y'all. These are so many different variations of brown. We've got caramel. We've got mahogany. We've got some little black bits from those delicious carcinogens. Remember, everything in moderation. They smell like the vinegars. They smell a little bit like the wine, and they're still thick enough and crunchy enough that they have texture. They're not wet, sad, soggy messes. All right, I'm gonna bite. Cover me in that. Bury me in a cemetery nowhere near Paris because that's unhygienic. I'm done. All right, my broth is going. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to switch these. I'm going to see if you can still, I'm going to move this one. Now, I love these pots, but the way that they conduct heat is directly onto the handles, no matter how small your flame is. So I still have to pull them off that way. All right, I'm going to move this baby over here. We're just going, it's been gently reheating. Gonna get that going again. Nope, that's a different one. All right, let's put that on about a medium. And remember, y'all, when we're talking medium heat, medium high heat, it's different for everyone. It's different for every stove. It's different for every oven. My oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit may be closer to your 530 or vice versa. Just remember to go with what your soul says. I'm going to go ahead and spoon these directly into the broth. Now you could have, if we'd have let those onions cook down in that other vessel, you could have just put the broth right in with them. That would have been very easy, but because I wanted them to be just a little bit more caramelized, I'm going to add it just directly to this pot. I'm going to give it a stir. So these onions themselves have been temping, so it means sitting out at room temperature for about 2 hours, so they're no longer cold. But I'm going to go ahead and bring this up pretty quick. All right, let it rip, stove. So while that's going, I'm going to prepare for the next bit. What do we call it when we prepare? We are getting in our mise en place. Anyone know what mise en place stands for? It's French. That is, if any of y'all have your RecipeKick aprons, that is embroidered on there. Your mise en place stands for everything in its place. That basically means getting your assembly line ready before you start cooking. Think of Henry Ford when he was developing Ford motor cars. The reason it became so successful, one, it was a great car. People wanted it. I mean, I've never driven a Ford. I assume it's a great car. But it's that he had assembly lines. Everyone had a place. Everybody had a job to do. Everything was already there, which cuts down on things potentially going wrong. And then what does that give room for? Creativity. Because we had everything prepared and everything ready and all in its place, I was able to float around. I was able to say, let's add rosé wine. I want sherry vinegar and cider vinegar. Look, I already picked my herbs instead of running around and trying to do everything at once. This works for everything in the kitchen. Where did I put my knife? See, my mise en place is great until I can't remember where I put things. I'm going to move the cheese off the board really quick, and I'm going to chop up some of these chives. But your mise en place just makes everything so much easier, and you can do it for absolutely anything in the kitchen that you could possibly. When you're making cookies, have all of your ingredients out. Have them set off to sides. Think likes go with likes. We're just like, take cookies, for example. You have all of your ingredients that are going in the dry bit. Put those all together. Already weigh them. Already measure them out. Have your wet bits off to another side. That way, things just go so much smoother, and it opens you up to get creative, to get into that RecipeKick and courageous mentality. Oh, also, I missed a message. Full cast iron gets hot and holds the heat throughout the entire pot. Alex is mentioning how those sides work. Absolutely. And I got to tell you, it's wonderful, but it's so annoying. And I have my hands can be kind of delicate. I am a massive needle pointer, also big with mise en place, having all my threads, my scissors, my needles, everything ready to go. And it's sadly kind of worn away quite a bit. I also have no fingerprints on my right hand. I think that's cool. We're just learning all fun facts about each other today, aren't we? I'm an oversharer. I have no mystery. All right, I'm just finally chopping up some of these chives. But not too much because we're just making for one. I love chives also. When it comes to garnishes, this is going back to this pyramid. This comes into our compliments. Chives are a member of the allium family. What's also a member of the allium family? Onions. It's just bringing those flavors together again and talking. I also should have mentioned, you don't just, now it's bubbling, bringing to a boil, off the heat for 1 second. That's also hot, but not too terribly hot. All right, just gonna let that come a little bit off heat just while I finish this statement. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. The oven is still on, so that part is still pretty hot. But you could deviate from just French onion soup. You can put leeks in there. Leeks are such a fantastic and misunderstood vegetable. Let me see if I have one. I have a baby leek. A leek is a member. Oh, that's not a baby leek. That's a green onion. This is a baby leek. We're getting to the end of season, hence why it's so small. A leek is also a member of the allium family. It is very much like onion, but very soft. Instead of sometimes an onion can just scream at you, onion flavor. A leek just whispers, hello, it's me. It's basically the Adele of the vegetable world. It's absolutely fantastic. Use that in there. You could throw in a little bit of garlic if you really wanted to. It's not traditional, but neither are any of us. Let's get away from tradition. Let's have fun, but always honor it. So I'm going to now get myself set up. I have my bowl. I have soon to be my beautiful French. Actually, hold on. I'll go back over here and I'll show you real quick what this looks like. Do you see this? I'm sorry, I'm over in camera B. It's just beautiful. And see, those onions are not mushy gushy. They're not getting lost. They're still chunky enough that they're going to show up. The textures are still going to be there. Even if you are sitting in a dark, very romantic restaurant and won't be able to see once you get past the cheese pools, you'll be able to taste and you'll be able to know that an onion is there. I always very much dislike when I'm eating something and I can't tell what the ingredients are. All right, so what I've done is I've spooned the onions in first just to give myself more control. And then I placed a little bit of that broth directly on top. So I'm going to see if y'all can see what I'm talking about. Now, what I'm about to do next is not for the faint of heart, and you don't have to do this part, but I have a blowtorch and I'm going to use it. Ha! Just kidding. I mean, I do have a blowtorch and I am going to use it. If you do not have one of these wonderful kitchen utensils hanging around, that is totally fine and totally normal. Most people do not, especially if you're in a small apartment. If you're in any way, shape, or form feeling comfortable with using one of these, please do not use them. Just don't. But you can do a wonderful trick with this, which is just putting this French onion soup underneath the broiler. Take your oven, turn it to the highest temp. If you don't have a broiler, put that oven rack right up next to it that you can scooch in a tray filled with these bowls. Put the croutons and the cheese on top, stick it under the broil, and watch it like a hawk. Every broiler is different. I'm not going to tell you. Watch for 5 minutes. If you wait for 5 minutes and you come back and everything is burned and you have to use your fire extinguisher, that's not my fault. So just always watch it like a hawk. Next up, I'm going to take my croutons, these wonderful crunchy olive oil croutons. Just fantastic. I'm going to give this a pretty good handful. And what I'm doing here, if you can see, I'm gonna move this up just a little bit so you can see. All right, if you can. Ooh, that's hot. So what I'm doing here is I'm building up as I go. Oh, tip, also, Alex, also tip, broil on top rack versus bottom rack. Yes, exactly. You can't broil anything on the bottom rack. That heat's not making it all the way down there. So I'm going to build up these croutons a little bit just so I can be assured of the fact that some of these will remain crunchy. All right, time for this lovely cheese, Gruyere cheese. I'm going to kind of artfully, if you can see this, we'll do it this way. Artfully as possible, but also it's gonna melt. As long as it's delicious, honestly, that's really all I care about. And I'm just gonna kind of place these over here. I'm gonna do on one side just to show you. Oh, move camera B. All right, I'm coming for y'all. All right, bear with me as I get reset up. Scooch you back. How's that? I think that's fine. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. Also, you'll see I have my knife facing away from me. Don't put a knife in towards you if something happens. It's bye-bye. Kitchen safety is huge. All right, see, I'm just kind of layering that cheese. I'm also kind of layering it in deep because this is something about me. I don't want all of the cheese to be melty. I want all my textures coming in, kind of like I was saying and have been reiterating over and over. I like different textures too with same ingredients. If you're making a salad, sometimes I'll cut up an asparagus 3 different ways because I want 3 different types of texture. Here I want melty cheese, but I also want kind of hearty cheese that's ready to, or that's not quite melted. I want to be able to know that it's there. So I'm going to be very careful and turn this on. All right, see, we've got this flame. Now be very, very careful. Again, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, then don't do it. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to get to it. You see I have nothing paper, nothing near, and I'm going to start burning it. Woo! Somebody gave me fire. Bring cam A up now. All right. Look how beautiful this is. Oh, it's stunning. Now I'm beginning to get a little bit of those breadcrumbs, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little layer over that to protect. And I'm making this cheesy. Y'all, I just spent all that time slicing cheese. I want to reap the reward. And I know I said I wasn't that hungry because I wanted dinner, and now I just want this. So I've changed my mind. Yeah, be careful because you could burn a little bit of the breadcrumbs, but that's okay. That's how we learn. Back on. So if you can see, I don't know if you can see directly into the camera, but how it's just bubbling. Also, these bowls that I'm using are triple burned or triple kilned. So they are safe to do that. Don't be doing this with your grandmother's bowls. You're going to get in so much trouble. Oh, perfect. That's exactly how I want it. Oh, that's totally how I want it. If you want it to be a little bit more burned, you can go with that, or not burned, but melted. But this makes my little Halloween loving soul on fire. Oh my goodness. Okay. Also, after you have used that torch, it is going to be that's hot. Move it off and over to the side. Make sure this is pointing away. Also, make sure no kids are in the room while you're doing this. Just gonna say that. But the bowl itself is going to be very, very hot indeed. So grab it by the bottom. Do you see this? Do you see this absolute luscious, hearty, autumnal, but you can also eat in spring. You can also eat it in the dead of winter. You can eat it in the middle of summer. I see people in Paris ordering this during heat waves where it's 115 degrees outside. We're going to eat it now. Hold on, I'm going to take a deep breath. And I want what I affectionately refer to as the perfect bite. I want some broth. I want some of that cheese. Oh, look at that. Have you ever in your life, I mean, probably, but this for me is absolutely perfect. All right, we are going to go in and try. All right, 1, 2, 3, bottoms up. That char, as Alex just wrote, charred is the gastro term. We still know it is burnt. Absolutely. That char that went on some of my breadcrumbs, I wanted that. I love char flavor. I think it's very underutilized. If you're in California, though, you've got a whole law about it, Proposition 65, I think. But we won't get into that today. It is so luscious. It's hearty. It is just the most perfect comfort food and easy. That took us, all right, we've been here for almost an hour. If I wasn't chit-chatting and talking about history and etymology and Louis the 15th with y'all, we would have gotten by this in about 20 minutes. I mean, maybe max if we really tried. If you want to kick it up a notch, you can add some pepper. I'm going to add a little bit there. And because I was salting most things as I went, I don't really need salt in this. Also, the cheese itself is very salty, but why not? Let's just give it another bite. Okay. Oh, hold on. Another texture element. The breadcrumbs that sunk down. So the ones at the bottom of that little pyramid that I was building. See what I did there? The little bottom of the pyramid. These ones are now soft to the touch because they've been sitting in that broth. So it's another texture element with the same ingredients. Just a reminder. You can make textures out of one ingredient, multitudes. Oh, it's soft, it's chewy. Oh, yes. Okay, do we have any questions? Anything at all? Thank you so much for joining me today for our untraditional take of French onion soup. Just remember your basics, your foundation is going to be those onions, those leeks, the caramelizing process. But I just want you to remember that you can play around with caramelization. Make it chunky, make it thin, make a little bit of it burnt or charred if you really want to. Add in other flavors, add in wine. Add in, if we wanted to make this thicker, we could have added in flour. I told y'all to do that, but as I was watching it, I didn't want to add in flour. I didn't want to make kind of a roux of it. I used no butter in any of this. Don't tell the French people. Whoops. But we did use olive oil to make those wonderful crunchy croutons. We have a fantastic Gruyere cheese that we melted on top of it, and we used a really, really fortified stock that we made earlier. Also, if you want to know more about stocks itself, I believe there are already classes on RecipeKick of Kindles. Please go watch that. I'll even put those on the link actually, and if they're not up, we will get them up. But Alex said it's almost vegan. That's correct. This is hint of vegan, but it's cheese, so maybe hint of vegetarian. But I use chicken stock in the stock. It's almost there. It's whispering vegetarian. A whispering vegetarian stew, but one that you could really make easily vegetarian or vegan if you wanted to. If you want to make it vegan, you can use a cashew cheese. They don't really melt and burn the same way, but there are a few brands out there that make cashew queso. If I've got anyone in Texas, there is a wonderful brand that does cashew queso. It's pretty good. It's not the same, but for nuts, it's pretty good. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining. Welcome to RecipeKick. If this is your first time here, once again, my name is Stuart. I'm coming to you live from La Peach in France. Join me. My next lesson will be back in my little kitchen in Paris, and then we're back off to Texas for the holidays. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Alex. You guys are amazing. I'm going to eat this as my dinner. Night.